You're listening to The Startup with Monique LeRae, only on LA Talk Radio.
How's it going, Los Angeles? This is The Startup with Monique LeRae. I'm Monique LeRae. I'm back. This is the 5th year show, the 5th year anniversary. I couldn't do a party. I couldn't get into the studio today. I just have too much on my plate. Instead, you're in bed with me. I'm keeping it roots, keeping it here where it all started. 5 years in reflection on this show is really massive for me. I'm so grateful that I trusted my gut, and the thing that wasn't easy to do, I did it. The show will get sharper. We'll start marketing. I just wanted to know if I could keep consistent, and I look up and it's September 8th of 2024, and we started this little bitty show in September of 2019, and I didn't know the wild ride we do. We take this show all over the world. Sam, your team, everybody there that supported me. It got rough at moments, but Sam, thank you. Sam, can you chime in and say hi? Sam's going to be the Wizard of Oz behind the scenes here.
Hi, Monique. Congratulations.
Thank you, Sam.
You're a great woman and a tough woman, and we love having you. You've been very consistent, and we love having you at the station. Definitely.
Oh, Sam, thank you so much. Sam's not a fan of the remote, darling. You've got to get Sam in the live studio. So, Sam, it's Emmy's week, this week, next week. So I will be joining you in studio as promised. Just couldn't get there today. Thank you for believing in me and the kind things that you said.
Sure. Sounds good. Have a great show, Monique. And here's for another 5 more years.
Man. Here's to another 5, Sam. All right, guys, I have a very special guest. He's a very busy person. He was on our new podcast, The Ununited State. You're going to get me a little unfiltered there. I'm a little more professional here, but I'm bringing someone I just admire, adore. He is in a book. He's been in his industry for over 30 years. He's very accomplished and speaking soon for the national, I believe it's the National Association of Realtors in Miami. He's a keynote speaker coming up the 16th through the 19th of this month. Please welcome Mr. Jay Heckendorn-Telenda. Jay, welcome to The Startup, my 5-year show.
Woo, 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 woo. Yeah. Boom. There we go. Pump it up. We got to pump it up.
Thank you for being here. So why don't we go full screen? Jay, what I would love as my 5-year anniversary gift to my listeners and viewers, we want to grow, right? We're called The Startup, but soon we might be called The Startup Equals The Scale. We don't know. But you are a professional in your industry, mortgage and real estate, and you have done this 30 years seamlessly. And so I really want you to start off from the beginning. You have the whole 25 minutes left of the show. I want you to share where you were born, where you grew up. Please don't leave anything on the table, and you can share how you got to where you are now. Sam, can we go full screen on Jay?
Well, all right. This is going to make you cry, and it's also going to motivate and propel you. So I was born in Waco, Texas, and when I was about 6 months old, my father, he was a bank robber, a drug addict, and a bank robber, and so needless to say, they parted ways. And then my mother married some other guy, and so about 6 months, or maybe I was 2 years by then, went to Ohio. And back then, we didn't really have seatbelt laws and things like that. And so I literally rode in the back of a pickup truck from Texas to Ohio. And then, and that was an abusive, dysfunctional relationship. And so somehow we ended up back to Texas, over to Los Angeles. And then my mother dropped me off at my grandmother's house, my biological father, his mother's house. They're German. They're from Switzerland and Austria, and very, regimented. And so she drops me off there, and then comes home on Sunday night to pick me up, and brings this guy and says, "Hey, Jay, here's your new dad." And I was like 5 years old by then, and I was like, "Oh, I got a new dad. Okay." A little bit awkward, and that was a pretty abusive scenario. So that stepfather, he too was a drug addict, and physically and emotionally abusive. And like if I rode my bike, down the street, he'd throw newspapers in the spokes just to see me trip, and he'd want to do these spanking contests, with like wooden spoons and the pizza board holders and things like that. And I wanted attention so bad that, or I needed it, that that I was like, okay, let's do it. And what I didn't know is that he actually had a big wallet in his pants, whereas mine, obviously I was a little kid, I didn't have a wallet, and he whipped the crap out of me, and the job was to not cry, and it just, I went to 14 elementary schools, and then 2 times our house was raided by SWAT teams. There's nothing like being a 7-year-old and getting woken up at 3:30 in the morning with helicopters shining their lights in, and a bunch of guys with machine guns and armory jumping through my windows. That's pretty scary, and not knowing what's going on. But my stepfather had dealt drugs to Hell's Angels and some other motorcycle groups, and they'd have these crazy parties. And I remember one time, I was a little kid, and we were dirt poor. Like literally, breakfast was the big bags of like wheat, and you put in powder milk, which powder milk sucks because if you don't mix it up right, and then you get a clump of powdered milk down your throat. Oh my God, it's so disgusting. And those wheat puffs were just like, you couldn't put enough sugar on that to make it taste good. So I chose to just sneak off a scoop or two of peanut butter in the morning. And I literally had to sneak it because peanut butter wasn't cheap in the late 70s, even though Jimmy Carter was president. So I don't know how that came on. Anyways, so one day there was this big pile of white on the coffee table, and I thought, oh my gosh, yeah, I get like the powdered cream donuts or whatever, the donuts you get, and I didn't realize that was cocaine. So I dipped in thinking, oh, this is gonna be like the donuts you get, and no, and I forget if they took me to the doctor on that one or not. But needless to say, it was after that. Then again, we went to 14 different. I went to 14 schools because we kept getting evicted. Well, it's really tough when you go to the school in the inner city, because most of the inner city has always grown up in the same school or the same inner city, and we kind of jogged around the San Fernando Valley and Los Angeles. And so it's tough to and this is, I'm not racist at all, okay, I'm just calling it for what it is, but as one of the few white kids, and it's not easy to make friends when you're jumping in to an inner city school and trying to make friends. And
Sam brought me back. I have to cut right here because you have so much more meat in this sandwich. First of all, thank you for being transparent. You really have come a long way. I can relate to having to figure out the food situation. I think we had Spam Spam and cup of noodles and sardines.
Or
You remember
those
Spam?
oysters in a can. Yeah, it's disgusting. Or gizzards. Remember
Oysters in a can. You guys were getting fancy. Yeah. So pick it back up of where you're saying, of course, you were one of the only Caucasian people in the neighborhood. Pick it up from there.
So the good part about that, okay, because I choose to look at things in a positive light. So the good part is, after a lot of fights, we became friends. Okay, and I learned, hey, you don't look somebody in the eye because they're going to take offense to it, and it did take. And I learned how what it's like to be jumped by 3 or 4 people at the same time. And by then, my biological dad had gotten out of prison, and he taught me kind of how to fight and protect myself. Not to start a fight, but never walk away from a fight, right? The great part is that after a few fights, maybe a dozen, those people somehow became friends, because it was all about respect and loyalty. And the good part about going to 14 different elementary schools and 3 different junior highs is it didn't matter what the environment was, you learned how to connect. Now, the hard part back then, we didn't have cell phones, and so, or the internet, that was not around. So trying to stay in touch with the people that you already made friends with, but you got to move to another school, that was tough. And obviously I lost a bunch of them. It just lost touch, not lost them. But you learn how to make friends, and you learn the value of loyalty, respect, and just an acceptance and trust. And you learn how to be keenly aware of your surroundings. When you wake up in the morning, you don't know, did mom and dad get in a fight last night? What am I waking up to? What am I going to walk out of my bedroom? Am I getting the crap beat out of me because somebody's in a bad mood? Like, you just don't know. So you learn to really a keen, I call it a talent, to observe behavior and really read body language and a room. And, that's beneficial. Was it pleasant? Of course not.
No, let's pause there for a minute, if you don't mind, Jake, because you're really giving us a lot of great information, and I'm sorry that we can. I think I have this feeling that highly successful, highly functional workaholics. I mean, you and I are both workaholics. Self, we own that, right? And find, when I look at my own pathology and my sociology and my work ethic, I'm looking at the pieces of the puzzle, and albeit different, it's quite similar, you and I. And I think maybe you could say this, but did you feel like the environment you were in, because it was so out of control, you had a choice? You had, like, you come to an apex where you're like, I can get control of my life, but I have to do these things. I mean, did you have that kind of come to Jesus, come to Buddha conversation with yourself?
It was kind of forced upon, of course. When I was 9 years old, if I wanted clothes, I had to buy my own clothes. But I don't know how I was fortunate, but I really was fortunate. There was a guy, Steve Smith. Steve Smith had a landscaping company that they took care of a bunch of apartment buildings and Burger Kings and stuff like that. And he went to the same church. And Steve said, hey, Jay, if you are up at 3:30 in the morning and out on the alley, I'll pick you up, and you can pull weeds at these apartment buildings and Burger Kings and blah, blah, blah. But you better be in that alley by 3:30. Now, we lived in a seedy neighborhood, so I'd actually get up at 2:30 to make my lunch and be down in that alley by 3:30 in the morning, and I'd pluck weeds all day. Wow. And then I thought, well, screw that. At that point, we moved to another house, and it was a subdivision. And so I simply went to all the neighbors because the school had me selling calendars and candles and crap like that. And so I had to go door knocking, right? And my mom at the time was Jehovah's Witness, so I was familiar with door knocking. And so I thought, well, wait, why am I making money for all them? So I went to each of the neighbors, probably 200, maybe 300. And I said, hey, listen, can I mow your lawn? And I'll mow your front lawn for $8. And if you let me do your back lawn, I'll do it for 15. If you want edging, that's an extra $4. So I'll do it all for $19. And they said, yeah. And I'm kind of OCD, so I made sure it was good. But then I realized I'm allergic to pollen. So, you know, each of these neighbors were paying me $20 a cut. And thankfully, my mom at the time had opened a cleaning company, and she had a lady from Texas. The lady from Texas that was working for her had a son that was the same age as me, but about 2 feet taller than me, because I'm not actually the tallest guy. I'm vertically challenged. And so I look up to this guy, Tony. I said, hey, Tony, how much would you charge to mow lawn? You know, like the front lawn. And he says, I'll charge you $1. I said, how about if I give you $1.50? And if you do the back, I'll give you $3. And if you carry the lawnmower, because I bought a little trailer thing for, you know, like one of those tug trailers. And if you do that, I'll give you an extra 50 cents. So really, you can make $3 a lawn, and I'll tip you out. And he says, oh yeah, that's perfect. So he'd go mow those lawns, so I didn't get my allergies. And I would go and collect the money once he was done. The snag of that business model was that then I found out Tony's mom was getting relocated back to Texas. She was getting back together with her husband. So Tony tells me one day, Jay, we're moving back to Texas. And I said, oh
my
no,
gosh.
what am I going to do? So I looked around a couple of the neighborhoods. I rode my bicycle, and I went to one of the landscapers, and I said, hey, I've got this route with like 30 homes, and it makes about this much, but I'm not able to keep it up. Would you like to buy it? And so he gave me, I think, $1,200, and he bought my route from me. And I was the richest little 10-year-old.
So you guys, say it again. You're the richest little 10-year-old what?
I was the little richest 10-year-old on the block.
So I want everybody to take a moment here and really just bask in this. You saw that the schools were having you, schools were pimping you out to sell those candles and those candies, because everybody on the block knew me. I like clockwork. I would hit those streets with those things too.
You remember that?
They get you hyped up at the assembly. They get you hyped up. They're preparing you. I wish we had more classes like that. It was Entrepreneur 101. Because they're like, here comes Monique. She's selling something. But what you did, and when you were sharing this, you and I are alike in that way. I did that also. I took that business model, that drive they gave us at the assembly to sell their products at school, and I did a window washing business around my block. So when that money, I was like, why can't I keep working? The neighbors know me. And so I did yard sales and then window washing. And so, but what's interesting is that you scaled your first business at age 10, you knew enough to know 1 + 1 = 2 in this business. So 1 + 1 can equal 2 here. What do you remember, if you do, about 43 years ago when you sold your first business for $1,200? What do you remember? Do you remember anything like a voice or a feeling like you knew it could happen? Or what do you remember the psychology was, if you could? I don't know if you can.
No, of course I can. No, I remember the days specifically. So, no, I remember getting the cash, and I remember sitting there thinking, now what am I going to do? I got to figure something out. And so at that time, I was like 10 and a half years old. And we moved again, and to a different part called Silmar, not a good area. And at that point, we started doing model homes. So we started cleaning model homes.